All right, so super happy today. I got my good friend and fellow industry person, Mr. Tony Lively with ZRG here with me today. Tony, I know you're super busy, but thank you so much for taking the time to jump on the call with me today. How you doing?
Thank you, Sean, man. It's a pleasure. We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, we have. And, I talked to Adam last week. Adam called me up and we'd spoke, and I was sharing some stories with Adam about, the early days when me and you had both basically launched our company.
Oh,
I had Hospital Direct Medical down in San Diego. You were in Carlsbad and you had ZRG. And, the funny thing is, Tony, and I was thinking about this before we got on the call. Actually, I was thinking about this last night. You had some good sources of getting medical equipment. You still do have some great sources. And there was many times when I went up there and bought equipment from you, and you were always super fair and very, very, very caring and giving. But I guarantee you that there was equipment I bought from you in those days that kept my doors open, that kept payroll coming in, that if I didn't have you as a friend and as somebody I could get equipment from, we might not even be having this call right now. So we go back a ways, but
we do go in. And what's interesting is that you, myself, and Cliff Galante, right, from Gumbo Medical, right?
Gumbo,
we all started roughly, Trista, and Trista. We all started roughly around the same time.
Yeah.
And we all, I have to say, we all kind of learned the game together, right? You really did. I mean, you had Clyde. I didn't really have Clyde. I just, just attrition, just kind of, what is that? What does it do?
Exactly.
I've got a story I don't want to tell online, but I've got a story I'll tell you offline about one of the times I had some equipment I thought was really valuable. And the person said, do you know what that does? Right. And I'm like, no. Then he told me, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay. Oh my God. That's the thing about the medical industry. There's no shortcuts. When you jump in and you're not in the medical industry, there is that time frame where it's going to take you to learn, what is this equipment? What does it do? What's the difference between this and that? What models have value? Which ones do you just want to try to get rid of as quick as you can, or possibly even scrap? I mean, and that never really ends. I mean, it's still kind of there. You always have that core base of knowledge, but you still learn stuff as we go. And wow,
I can remember times where I'd get the new employees that would come in, and they'd see a bunch of, a certain monitor to come in, and I'd say, look at that monitor right now. I want you to visualize that monitor. Okay. You don't know what it is. It'd be an older, you know what I mean? An old Criticon, or, an old whatever, right? Stuff that we literally just would be recycling. I mean, because we just take up space, time to deal with.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's have a discussion about that monitor in 6 months, a year. And let me know if you know exactly if you'll see that monitor. I said, you'll get to a point where that monitor won't even, like you said, it doesn't fetch value. So it's like, how fast can I get this in the trash can?
Exactly.
And our background was in the recycling part of it. So, we had to do the responsibility recycling and do that whole piece of it. So, one thing for ZRG, I think that really helped us was that because we had all those recycling certifications.
That was huge.
That was not only huge to have the certifications, but number two, when my competitors would say, well, like, how do you manage? Because when we do these takeouts, you get the kitchen sink, right? And I said, well, here's the deal. I said, not only am I refurbishing, recycling the medical equipment, but I'm doing everything else, and I've learned how to move it quick, or find an outlet for it. So the quicker you can find the outlet, the quicker you can get that floor space back to something that's of value and stuff.
That's right.
So that really did help out and stuff.
Yeah. So, those were some fun times. I mean, we were both, just winging it and learning a lot and trying to grow our businesses. And now we are sitting here, and obviously the companies have kind of, done their thing. And now we're, I don't want to say we're along for the ride, because like with anything, you're always working hard to keep pushing it forward. But you know, you basically have got the business out of grade school and high school, and now you're sending your company off to college, basically, and you're still
Well,
going to
that's
have to work with the company, but now it's off in college, and even though, you know, you still are going to get hit up for money from the kids or whatever, you're still.
Yeah, that is true. But it is interesting to see, you know, those years of experience have paid off now, you know, where
They have.
like I said, we both, man, it's been a pleasure, like I said, to know each other and to know the people that we surrounded. I think one of the key things that you and I both have done that has allowed us to get to where we're at, because, you know, a lot of people try to get into this industry and then think, oh, I'm gonna like take the world by storm and whatever. And, you know, if you don't have patience and perseverance, you will fall by the wayside. But, you know, we're still standing. We were just talking about that the other day. I said, remember, you're like, Sean, you're Tony, I can't believe it. It's been X amount of years that we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And we're better off now than we ever were when we first started, man.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, I think part of it too is we're in the right industry. I think the medical industry as a whole is an industry that not a lot of people get into, but those that do, it's kind of an all or nothing deal. I mean, you're either all in and you're going to learn this stuff and really get into it and understand what you're doing. And you know, for me, when I got into it, and you were talking about Clyde, and you know, that really, you know, for anybody that's out there that didn't know Clyde, that really helped me get into the industry. And I, you know, for anybody out there that doesn't know, my background was internet marketing. Had done it in real estate, had a very good company, a lot of background marketing, real estate for real estate agents, companies, brokerages. And then that crash hit in, I guess that was what, 2007, 2008. And all the real estate stuff that I was doing basically came to a halt. And then I started doing marketing for a lot of doctors, different types of practices, general medicine, laser stuff. I mean, just fertility clinics. Like I would come in and, you know, do all this work and get these folks set up. And it was one doctor friend of mine actually that said, hey, you need to get in touch with Clyde. And Clyde, you know, he was probably about 65 when I met him. He was an older Black gentleman. He had actually grown up in Minneapolis, which is where I went to college. And then he moved out to Seattle, got involved with, he started working at a hospital, and this was probably back in the 70s or definitely in the 80s. And they started getting rid of hospital beds. And he said, hey, I'll take those. And they were looking at him like he was crazy. And he started running classified ads in newspapers selling hospital beds. And that in turn led him to, somehow he wanted to get down to San Diego. So he got down to San Diego.
Did he live on a boat
he did. Yeah, he lived on a boat. And he moved down to San Diego, and he got himself set up with Kaiser Permanente down there, and got some really good connections. And it was actually, we were talking before the call about hospital beds and how those things are, oh my God, there's so many stories you can talk about hospital beds. But if you're a medical dealer and you've got a contract with a hospital and they say, come and get them, there's 100 of them, you know, that's a big undertaking. And but when I started working with Clyde, you know, like you said, he was very, very kind, because he would show me all the equipment, show me how it worked, gave me access to everything. I basically sort of worked with him as an independent contractor, and I would come in there, take stuff. I kind of built a website off of that, which in turn was how I launched Hospital Direct Medical. But having a mentor like Clyde, who had been around for a while at the time I met him, and you know, obviously knew a lot about the equipment, having somebody like that mentor me, I'll always be eternally grateful to him for that, because that really helped me get into the industry, start understanding it, and having somebody there that could kind of back me up if I got in a pinch, if I had to talk about stuff. I remember the first endoscopy laparoscopic tower system that we had, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, what does this do? Oh, that's a light source. And you know, and he was kind of there, and if doctors and stuff came in that I got through advertising, you know, he was there anytime I needed him. And that's important in this industry. I mean, anybody that's coming into this industry, you have to understand it's going to take a little bit of time, and that's never a problem. But having good people around you to transition you in, to be there to give you those tidbits or jump on a call to help explain something, that's really what gets a lot of people over the hump and really helps them become successful in this industry. And I was blessed, obviously, that I met Clyde, and he was such a colorful character. I mean,
That's what, again,
oh my,
everyone, you say Clyde, you don't even have to say his last name and everyone would know.
you don't,
But
yeah.
Sean, we learned, one of the gentlemen there that we worked with was one of his counterparts, his competitors was Scott Snyder.
Okay.
We're kind of going back in history, right? But you know,
Oh,
Scott.
yeah.
So Scott was really, he bought a lot of equipment from us, right?
Mhm.
And but you know, he used to tell, so they were probably a good 20, because they were, you know, in their 60s when
Oh, yeah.
when we first came in. So they were
Yeah.
on their way out the door.
Yeah.
And again, Scott was very instrumental in helping myself and Adam and just what is this stuff? What's the value? You know, and there's a lot of times I'm sure I don't know about you, but I'm sure I've undersold plenty to folks that came in and were like, well, you'll buy that and you know, whatever. Well, sounds like that's a lot of money to me today.
Yeah, exactly.
But one of the things that I can say where we're different from today versus back then is in those days, Clyde, Scott, those guys would just have a bankroll of money on them.
Mhm.
They'd go in the back door of those hospitals and flash
Yep.
money and walk out with that stuff. And
Yep.
I would say in the time that you and I have been involved in this, it doesn't go like you don't walk in the back door with a
No.
stash of money.
that part of it's
Just
changed.
buy what's on the dock or buy what happens to be, you know,
So you want to hear a funny story now that we're back and we're thinking about that stuff, you know, so I'm working with Clyde, right? And he's like, oh, we got to go down to this Kaiser, we got to go to this hospital, that hospital. And we were all over the place and we're there picking up stuff. And, you know, this is back in the early days where like a Sonosite 180 plus, that was a big deal.
Oh yeah.
I got 4 or 5 Sonosite 180s and I'm all excited, right? And then, you know, the Sequoia 512s, I mean, Kaiser was probably one of Siemens' best customers.
We're dating ourselves.
And I can't think of some of the other stuff that I would call hot items back in the day, but we'd be loading this stuff up and I'd be all excited and I'd be driving the truck and Clyde, sometimes Clyde was in the truck. Sometimes he might even be in a second truck because we needed more than one. And then we'd get to the warehouse. And then the day his warehouse was in El Cajon before he went down to Chula Vista. And I'd roll in there and guess who's sitting out back waiting for us?
The Tejadas? No.
Close. Arnie with MFI.
Oh,
Arnie was Clyde's best customer, right?
Was he really?
So Clyde would be working.
Did not know that.
Arnie, I'd get there and Arnie's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to take these. And he would scoop like a lot of the high value stuff. And I just,
before you guys even have a chance to get, those are funny stories because we would have the Tejadas come up from Chula Vista, right?
Yeah.
And literally we would open the doors and they'd be plucking it off the truck. And we're like, we haven't even put it in inventory yet. And but Sean, I wanted to thank you personally, because again, this is, and you'll remember this, but you know, in the old days, we really kind of worked together. Mm-hmm. When I say work together, we worked for competing companies. We were going after the same customers, but I can tell you more than one time, Sean, where you rented the truck, right? Mm-hmm. Came up and got me, went up to one of the LA community hospitals or whatever back in the day when we could make bids on the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Remember they would give us a bid sheet and we would write out the bid sheet, right? and you'd win this, I'd win that, and we'd load the trucks up.
Exactly.
Similar thing. And we drive back, you drop me off, I'd load my stuff, you'd help me unload it, and you go down to San Diego and you do that. And you know, I'm not saying that that spirit's not still there, but I mean, those are days where Sean, you really, we both helped each other out, you know?
Oh yeah.
There was an opportunity, you know, you were like, hey, you know, nowadays, I just don't think that, rightfully so, you know, there's such a competitive landscape.
Yeah.
But like in those old days, it was not uncommon for you to do that. I mean, really, rent the truck, come up, and you were help me be just me and you, and we'd go to these places and knock out a job.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I remember that. But you know, when I started off this call and I said, Tony, I swear that there was stuff that you helped me, you got, that you sold me that helped me get rent paid that month. I wasn't joking. Like, I look at some of those
you know what?
videos.
It's all good. What comes around goes around. And like I said, you know, we're now so above all, I'm not saying above that, but now we're in such senior leadership roles now, you know. Back in the old days, man, we had to do everything, you know, we did every, and I think a lot of the younger companies, when they're starting out, they're doing the same thing.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I enjoy seeing some of these companies that, you know, have done the same similar thing where they ventured out on their own and had to do everything, you know. And I've had friends where I remember going into the warehouse and I'm thinking, first I asked, where's your forklift? They said, we don't have a forklift. I said, well, where's your pallet jack? We don't have a pallet jack. I'm like, do you have any pallets? Right? You know, how do you move that to that? Right? Do it by hand. I'm like, oh my, you know, I mean, not that we were that, but you know, like I said, we all kind of learned, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, I'm with you 100%. And you know, it's interesting you say that because, you know, I do run across companies, as you do, that are younger companies that are trying to get their foothold in and they're trying to build. And there's one company that comes to mind because I brought them up a few times. But do you know those ladies down in Miami that have that?
I've met them, but I wouldn't say that I know them.
Yeah. So so the one gal is Andrea, and she's got a business partner, Gabriella. And you know, they started this A&G biomedical company, and I think they're now in their third year. And I was telling somebody else, it might have been on another call, but you know, I resonate a lot with them because when I look at them at that part of their journey that they're on building this business, I remember what it was like for me. I mean, we both do. We remember what it was like, where it's like, you know, I just want somebody to step in and just, well, you know, the first thing is I'm not trying to give anybody advice. I'm just throwing out some suggestions on maybe things I would do, but I never want to get to the point where I'm like, you know, I'm just throwing it out there and, you know, it's your company, you do whatever you want. But I was down there with them about probably about 3 weeks ago. And I stopped in just to say hello. And I've met them before. I met them at, I keep calling it FIME, but everybody's pronounced it FEMA.
We call it FEMA. I call it FEMA, but
yeah, well, the people that know the right pronunciation call it FEMA, but you know, I don't fit in that category. But anyway, and I've spoke to them before, and we've exchanged communications quite a bit. But when I was down there, they were talking about, oh my gosh, you know, we're outgrowing our warehouse. We need to move to a new place. And you've got a great place now up in Oceanside, right?
Right.
But I remember when I moved from Suite 500 to Suite 600 and went 2.5 times the amount of space, I was in a lot of anxiety. It's like, yes, I need the space, but wow, I'm going to take all that on, and now my overhead's going to double.
Yeah.
And you know what that's like. I mean, that's a little bit daunting, but it's, you know, I guess no great risk, no great reward, but that doesn't make you feel any better when you're signing a lease for 3 years and you're going, okay, I hope this works because I'm all in right now.
Yep.
And,
well, grew. You had a bigger way. You had again, you were smart enough. I have to give you credit when you started, whether it was by luck, but because you were doing beds, right? So you kind of needed the space. But and then to add whatnot, but you know, we all, like I said, you got to start somewhere. Beds is not, you now what you know now, and you know somebody is getting into the bed game, right? You're like, you better think long and hard of what you're doing before you get into it, because it's a brutal beast.
Well, you know, the thing that's interesting about the bed game, and this goes back to Clyde, and this is how I got into the bed business. Clyde was one of the only people that did beds, right? And he did beds because, number one, they're lucrative and you can make money from beds, but also because with those hospital contracts, as we know, when they say come get it, you go get it. I mean, you're not gonna sit there and play that game where no, I just want your, in those days it was like a K Alpha Star, or, you know, I just want your McKay tables, or no, you come and you get everything. But since I was working as an independent contractor, I was like, okay, I need to sell something that's going to give me the most sales.
Mhm.
And so hospital beds, I figured out real fast, they go a lot for home use because
Mhm.
obviously there's a lot of people that get out of the hospital that still need hospital grade care. And what they're getting from their insurance providers normally is not making the grade. So I could sell onesie, twosie beds and bring money in that way. I did a lot of business with Latin America, but primarily Mexico, because like the Tejadas and
Mhm.
others that we knew that were down kind of, you know,
The border
Tijuana
there.
and Baja and coming back and forth, they were always, you know, when you sell beds to people like that, you're selling 30, 40, 50 at a time. It was not like I'm going to sell a bed, but you
Yeah.
could move them that way. And so you had the ability to sell long-term care, home care, international, and then of course, nursing schools and other different places. So I really got into the bed business for a couple of reasons. Number one, it helped me survive when I got into the medical industry because, you know, it was easier to sell that than a surgical table, which might have 5 places it could go and, you know, whatever. And then also, there's very little competition. So in the hospital bed business, it wasn't like selling a patient monitor where there's 50 companies that want to sell a monitor. There was very limited options where you could get a hospital bed from. And so, you know, that kind of got me into the bed business, and beds obviously were always like a very core part of my business model because of that. And so it filled a niche at the time, and it kind of got me into that. But, you know, being with Clyde, that, you know, we still sold a lot of other stuff, but
Well,
that's
Sean,
how I got into the bed business.
one area where I must compliment you and you saw the future is that you were getting into home health before home health became like a popular segment, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's thinking, Sean, why, where? And then now, as you'll see, more and more of the industry is going towards the assisted living places and that
right.
stuff. I mean, that's a whole, like Gloria, one of your employees. I mean, that's kind of where she found her sweet spot at.
Yeah.
So
And that's continuing to grow. I mean, that was one thing that I saw at the FEMA show, was that there was a lot more manufacturers that were catering to long-term care, home care. You know, you're seeing more and more of that being integrated into the medical industry because, you know, obviously there's a lot more baby boomers and people that need home care, but
Yep.
there's no reason why home care or long-term care should compromise the quality of care that people are getting.
Correct, correct. But I mean, you know, like you said, you know, at least I know in the biomed, the materials management, the folks that we deal with in the hospitals.
Mhm.
I mean, we're having a brain drain real quick here because we're all getting to that age, you know, we're 50 and above, you know, where we're not backfilling fast enough to replace these managers, myself, you, that once we're gone, I mean, that all that knowledge, Clyde, that we have,
Yeah.
it's I don't know if we can, that's one of the things where I'm working with the biomed associations, and you know how involved I am with those folks.
Dude, you are
I mean, it's kind of like my calling, like you said.
It is.
I'm all about giving back.
Yeah.
Giving back. And that's one of the big issues that we have is how do we pipeline these folks in? And one of the folks that I feel is really at the forefront of that is Danielle McGarry from Amy, who she's going into the high schools.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know if you know Mimi, right? My
Oh,
wife,
yeah. Mimi's big into that.
so Mimi, before she came on board, well, just, you know, in the old days, Sean, you know, when we were doing it, right? The difference between yourself and myself is I had a wife who was a vicious bean counter, right?
Yeah.
That could you know, did all the back end. She was working in the at the community college at the time, and you had yourself, right?
Well, sort of. I had Gloria and Danielle.
Well,
there.
you had Gloria to help you out, and you know, and God bless Gloria, because like I said, she was, you know, we used to, you know, joke, and we're like, should we have Gloria sign the check or should we have Sean, right?
Yeah,
and
well,
say, well, if I sign it, it'll be a few $1,000s less than what Sean will sign it for. You were very generous with your hours, but anyways, just some background on Mimi. Mimi, what's really kind of neat is that Mimi worked in the community college, but her job was to go into the high schools and get those students in high school the same credit they would get at college. so that they would then transfer into college. They could to take those credits they earned in high school. So she had a good background in going into the high schools and getting them brought up into various industries that they chose to go into and stuff. So that's something Danielle from Amy is doing, which is just, I'm so impressed. We're doing our end of the month. We have the CMI Connect, which is our big, the California Biomed Association conference. And every year she either invites a group of high school students to the conference. And I think this year she's going to do it again. And I think we're going to Kevin Davis's place called ERD. And it's going to be a whole, these students will go for the day, get lunch. But I mean, they're going to see what a biomed does.
Yeah.
What it's like to go do a refurbished piece of equipment, probably go out and do a service call and whatnot, and get them to do that. So she created, just to give her a plug, she's got she calls it HTM in a box. And she's got, it's different. It's kind of a presentation, but she's got a presentation that'll even go down to the junior high school level.
Wow.
And then she's got one for the high school, one for college, and just, you can go in there and do that presentation. So, I mean, Danielle is really pushing the envelope as far as getting these younger folks, to see what our industry is all about.
That's awesome. And I know I work a lot and do a lot of stuff on this channel with Chase Torres.
Yep.
The bearded biomed, and he's doing the same thing. And he's really trying to push bringing in new blood and bringing in a new generation of biomeds. And I know he works a lot with CBET, which is College for Biomedical Engineering
Monty, is that Monty and Bill's company?
Yeah, I think those guys are over in Texas.
Yep, that's my Monty and Bill.
Yeah, and they just did an interview that Chase has on our channel. In fact, can I do a shameless plug for our channel?
You can, Sean, please.
Well, these videos, I mean, the whole purpose of a lot of this stuff is to start networking the medical industry together, getting people like me and you together, talking to other people in the industry, which we're going to do here after I do my plug. But, the goal is for us to get to know each other better, kind of get an idea of, where everything's going within our industry, and start kind of getting people getting to know each other a little bit better, and being a little more efficient at what we do. And so that channel that we've got multiple ones. Healthcare Socials is the new social media platform. Healthcare Direct USA is sort of another .med, so to speak. And then we have an events website that's just going to promote all the biomed events going on around the country. But the goal of that is to really kind of centralize a lot of our communications and get more of these types of conversations going, and and starting to get to know some of the companies and working closer with them and getting to know the people behind the scenes. So that's kind of what we're doing here. But these are the kind of calls that I really like, because we can really discuss what we see in the industry, what you see in the industry. For people that are out there that might be right at the edge of saying, oh my gosh, I hope I get my rent paid this month. You will. But if there's something that I can do to help you, or Tony can do, or if you need equipment, or if you need a deal, or if there's stuff out there that people need that are trying to make it in the industry, then you've got people like us that might be good people that you can reach out to, and then develop working relationships with. I know you're very well entrenched on the West Coast, very well, and now in the Midwest, right, with your new location. But there might be times where another company is trying. Now, I'm not going to say. I'm just going to say it. I think you and Relink actually would be a good fit.
I think so.
Because there's no reason to go out and reinvent the wheel if you've already got the West Coast locked up. It's easier to just come in and buy you as an asset and say, we are going to buy you, Tony, but you still have to work. You still have to work, Tony. But coming out there and growing their business. See, we talked about this before the call, and I'm just going to share this with you right now, is that the medical industry has a lot of challenges that when you're getting started. We've talked about some of those, but one of the challenges that we've talked about, and we all know very well, is when you get sent to a hospital and you've got to pick up a lot of stuff, getting all that stuff picked up and put in a truck without getting it damaged and getting it back to the base station is really, really important. And I know as a business owner, and you know that, you know, I mean, there's things that I just want to go off on a tangent and really just vent, but you put an ultrasound table in a truck, and then you start stacking stuff on it. And you get back and you found out that whatever you stacked on top of it, whatever the coworker that you had with you that day did, you just tore the upholstery. So now, instead of being able to just take that table out of the truck and sell it, now you got to go through getting it reupholstered. But normally you're going to try to sell it and say, I'll reupholster it after you purchase it, because you don't want to spend all that money right up front, but you're watching the value of the equipment you got shrink, because it's not as easy as people think. And we were talking about my business partner, John, Mr. John Taylor. I absolutely love him to death. But I was telling you, he's very ADD, and it's like he will go through those trucks and he'll make sure there's at least 10 blankets, 3 shrink wraps, 3, 8 sets of straps. Like, if he gets into your truck and you don't have that in there,
Yeah.
I don't want to be
not going out
when he unravels, because that's the kind of little stuff that determines what the value of the stuff is when you get it back. And it's so heartbreaking in our business when you get good equipment and then all of a sudden you find out, well, those MP70s all got scratched because they were leaning up against this and that shifted, and it's like but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you're doing expansion and you're trying to grow, finding people that have that on-site experience that can go in there, professionally deal with medical staff, be a conduit for your company to bring a good presentation for your business, and then understand how to load, pack, and do that. That's a skill set that honestly is not ever probably given enough credit. But when you're saying, I'm going to expand into upper Northwest, or I'm going to expand to California, and you want to get, I mean, that's not easy to find, and that takes time to learn. So sometimes it's easier to just grab a company that already has that skill set and not have to.
Sean, you know what, I have to just say that is just I hope everyone hears that, because that's so true. And I just think we have the experience that we've seen it. We've seen it. If you can think of it, we've seen it, right?
You've seen it. Well, here, Tony, you want to hear something even funnier? I'm talking about how that stuff happened. Did you notice how I blamed it on a coworker?
Oh, right.
There was plenty of times where it was probably me initially that did it and said, oh my God. In fact, I'll never forget a story of, I want to say it was probably 15 or 20 total cares, P1900 treatment beds. I went up to Monterey to go get those. And I strapped them in, right? And I put the brakes on. We all know the brakes don't work.
Sean, you've done a lot more haul out than I have, especially with beds. I mean, you were always, you went and did the job, right? So you were there.
Yeah, I went on site on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, you did.
But that one load, now I knew that the brakes weren't going to hold, so I wasn't under the impression, oh, if I set the brake, but I did strap them in, right? But what I didn't do is
didn't take the headboards off, and didn't take the
no, that part I did. That part was easy, but something happened and I can't remember what it was, but those beds all came loose after they were 20 miles down the road and they had to go 500 miles. So the beds basically were doing this right up against each other. And when I opened up that truck and they got down there, the side rails on just about every single one of them were just destroyed. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God. And it's, I will say that those are the kind of mistakes you only make once. Yeah. You go up there and you put that much work and effort into getting beds, and those weren't, me and Hill-Rom and me and the Hill-Rom Total Care Sport Bed, we have a long love affair. We have a long love affair, and there's been many times where, as much as I love that sport bed, I would rather,
Talk about the P1900.
Oh God, I mean,
I don't mean to laugh.
Hill-Rom did something right. They made a bed that went into a chair, but the other part of it was that maybe we could do it without hydraulics. Maybe we could do it without a hydraulic block that's trying to run hydraulic fluid through a pinhole And, you know, now the Progressa is definitely a great bed, but those are just, I'm just starting to get my hands on those now. And obviously, you know, that's more expensive bed. They're not, you know, it's a different story, but the sport bed, everybody wanted sports, and
they were probably the most not to compare, you know, like Secure 2s and whatnot, but it was competing against the Secure 2, right?
It was competing against, Stryker had an XPRT bed, which was, I think it was a 2040 or 2041 or 2141. And that was also a good bed. But the one thing that Hillrom did that Stryker didn't do on that model was get the bed to go into a full chair position.
Right.
And everybody, when they saw that chair position, they wanted that bed. They still do. I mean, they still do when they see it. I mean, I have many overseas customers that request Total Care Sports, and I just flat out tell them, no, sir, I'm not even shipping those over there, because they're going to require maintenance and that. And, you know, unless you've got a former Hillrom guy sitting in your hospital, that's not a bed you want to tackle.
Yeah, I tell you, Sean, I will say, again, we talked about this pre-call here, but you really, really have to know what you're getting into when you're doing beds. The audience that doesn't know, like we manage beds. We, like Sean said, they call you and say there's 100 beds on the dock. You got to go get them, right? There's no but once I got them, I don't do bed. I mean, I leave that to Sean, the Sean's, the Cliffs, the people that do beds.
Yeah, and the Kens.
Us, you know, the people, Green River. I mean, those guys, they know beds. So
yeah, and you bring up Green River, you bring up Gus. You know, Gus is the kind of guy where he could still go on site and he could still load 100 beds with a couple guys with him. Gus still packs it up every once in a while and says, I'm going to see this job. There's going to be some high-end people there that I'm going to need to just say hello to, and I know they'll be there, so I'm going to go on the job. But, you know, yeah, I mean, Gus has been doing that forever. But, you know, the difference between me and Gus is that Gus got contracted in working with manufacturers. So he did, the amount of volume that he did was just, I mean, nobody in the planet has moved more hospital beds than Gus Kafalis. There's nobody out there. I mean, and he, even though he is primarily working out of the office now, when I first met Gus, probably, I want to say about 6 years ago, he was still going on all the jobs. I mean, they might have 3 jobs going and 2 guys are going over there. And these are 2 guys. Just so anybody knows, every bed is a minimum of 500 pounds. You get a VersaCare, that's 600. You get a Sport, that's 700. You get a InTouch bed, those are 850 pound beds. Now, the one thing about the InTouches is that those we don't stack. And when I say stack, I mean stack them straight up and down. So those took up a little more space, but for all the other beds, they all get stood straight up and down, and they go 5 across in a truck. And when you get 3 or 4 in there and you're getting to that last space, when you stand up that last bed, it has to be pushed in, and pushing a 500 or 600 or 700 pound bed straight in requires it's a physical undertaking. So
and safety. I mean, there's instances I've heard where people have been putting beds in there and they got their finger behind one of the things. Right. And
a lot of people, I know people, I know people have lost fingers. I know people have been seriously injured because of bed. So for anybody out there in the bed business or getting into the bed business, this is a great tip. Every bed, as you know, Tony, has to be dropped down, zip tied shut. Yeah. But do not buy your zip ties at Home Depot. You've got to get commercial grade zip ties from Uline, because and the other thing about that, actually bringing it up, those zip ties are only good until about 30-degree weather. Yeah. And then
once you don't buy them from Harbor Freight, right?
Well, maybe, I don't know. I've never bought them.
No, I'm saying Harbor Freight is a level below. I love Harbor Freight, but it's a level below Home Depot. So that's a good tip.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But when you get into the winter time, you can't use the regular zip ties. You have to get ones that are metal zip ties. But I guess the point I was going to make is that I know many people move in beds where the zip tie is broke, or the zip tie wasn't put on correctly, and the bed is basically unfolded like an accordion. And depending where your hands are, your rest of your body is, you are going to take a beating from that bed, and you'll be hurt, but the bed won't.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, you really need to be experienced, or at least have experienced people around you when you're doing that, because that can be very dangerous.
Well, Chris, to give a shameless plug to your Chris, when he went on the West Coast,
Yeah.
I mean, that guy he was an animal. He really
A
was.
monster.
He
A
really, I
monster.
mean, and he was just, you know, he not that he wasn't friendly, you know, he came, did the job and whatnot, but I mean, he knew, he came in and did the job. I mean, you
I'll
got.
tell you what, Chris, when Chris was on a job, I might have been the owner of the company. You would have never known it, because Chris was calling the shots, very much like in the office. Gloria was calling the shots, and I was there in name only, but you know, I still had to answer to all these
You
people.
represented your company well. I mean, like I said, like he was like a, and not in a bad way. I mean, he just came in and took
But
care of business.
he'd be on me. He's like, dude, this guy's got to go. This guy is not going to make it. I don't have the patience to work with him. He's not moving fast enough. I remember Chris, you know, telling me, hey, you know what? I pulled up to do a delivery, and this guy, I'm driving, and this, because Chris wanted to drive everywhere. This guy wouldn't even get out of the truck. And I'm going, okay, well, what do you want me to do? He's like, well, I can't work with him. I'm thinking, okay, well, I kind of just understood now what you're telling me is I need to go find other people. But Chris had a very high work ethic, a very high work standard. And if you didn't match that standard, he did not want you around. And that's kind of how it needs to be in that industry, especially when you're moving beds, because every person's got to be able to pull their weight. Because if you're not, that you're putting extra work on other people. It's very much, I mean, I don't want to compare this to SEAL team stuff, but you know, when you're carrying that log, you want every guy putting their shoulder or their arms on it. You do not want, you know, 3 guys carrying the load for 5, because 2 of them are sort of lollygagging around. So Chris was one of those guys. And you know, that's actually a good point, Tony, because like yourself and me, I'm only and have only been as good as the people around me. Whatever skills or whatever things that I have that are good, it doesn't matter. If you don't have good people around you, you know, it's always going to hold you back from your company or yourself making maximum potential. And so I was blessed in a way like you were, where we were able to find good people, get them around us, and really help us build our companies. And knowing that you're sending people out to get equipment, or you're knowing people, you're sending them out to do bed deliveries, you know, and knowing that they're going to get the job done and not having to worry about that, that allowed me to go back in and do more marketing stuff and stuff that was kind of more in my sweet spot. But
yeah, interesting, Sean. But no, it is amazing that like I said, there's a group. I think what's kind of neat is that there's a group of us, I can probably count them on one hand, and we all like literally started school the same day, right? Yeah. And you know what? We still have a great professional. Like I said, if you called me and said, Tony, you want to be on my show, I'd say, Sean, when do you want me on? Yeah, let's go. Let's do it, man. So I'm really glad that you're giving these folks the opportunity to be actually just share your knowledge, my knowledge of where we're at and what we're doing. I think
on the next call we do, Tony, we'll have to get Trista and Cliff in with us.
You know what, I think it would be really, I mean, I would say Cliff, it might be a little harder to get on.
Cliff might be tough, but definitely Trista.
Trista would do it. And you know what, rightfully so, because Trista has got such a phenomenal reputation in this industry.
She does.
You know, I mean, I'm talking from buying from, she says, not to give Gumbo Medical here a shameless plug, but we love them.
Yeah. I love them.
I mean, yeah, they're good. If you're dealing with Trista Galante, you're going to get what you ordered. You're going to get that and more.
Right. And, you know, they've got a great working relationship, because Trista's handling everything from the sales and, you know, the business part of it. And Cliff is on site doing the physical work and the recertification. And I talked to Trista, it's been probably 6, maybe 8 weeks ago, but I called her up because, you know, just another shameless plug, iMedical has a lot of hospital beds. So anybody that needs them, come call me. I got plenty of beds, baby. So I called Trista and just checked in on her and, you know, want to know how she was doing, and said, hey, you know, I've got a lot of bed inventory and I do have some stretchers, whatever. But the one thing about Tristan, the one thing about Gumbo, and that ties back into why we're doing these calls, is that if we were ever in a pinch and I needed equipment, and Trista's good at doing white labeling, so I could sell it through Hospital Direct Medical. Gumbo would do the fulfillment on the order. But the one thing I told Trista, I said, Trista, you always had such good quality stuff. You know, Gumbo always did super first class, great I mean, like there always was really, really good quality, and Trista was always there in a pinch. And there was times where, I mean, the only thing I'm thinking right now, because this is one of the last orders that I had done with the in more recent years, was for TransStars, and I needed some TransStars, and I had quoted them kind of low. I think I don't remember what the exact price was, but I kind of needed a deal, if you know what I mean, like. Trista, I need to try to get this deal figured out without taking a loss on it.
Right. I just need to break even. And,
yeah, at this point, if I can just get
1%.
these things out to this customer, because I've got them in my warehouse, and then somebody's going through them, and it's like, oh, that one needs a piston, or this one's that, and I'm going, oh my God, okay, I'm figuring that out on the fly, and then I'm like, well, I know if I get anything from Trista, it'll be top of the line quality, and I would call her, and a lot, not just me, people within the company, Gloria, others in our company would call Trista, and and they always did a great job. And there was actually one time where I flew out there to come meet them, and did an on-site with them. And I think at that time I was actually buying some beds. But I got a real good look. Me and Clip, I spent some time with Clip, and we went through, and he showed me station by station by station the breakdown. And these are the days where, Tony, I'm not a biomed, and I will never claim to be a biomed, because that's a skill set I
all by itself, right?
Nor am I a handyman really at that point either, as long as we're going down that road. But Clip loved it. He loved getting his hands on it. And I would go to their website, and it was like an 8-step process, right? Everything's disassembled, everything's cleaned, everything's repainted, the brakes are redone. It was like, wow, that's like,
and they do it. They truly, and not to plug them, but they
truly do. Yeah, they truly do. And they do a great job.
Yep. Who was I going to, oh yeah. Well, you're on the gumbo one, and I hate to give another shameless plug to a company, but you got to plug Trista's dad, Ken Smith.
Oh, Ken, of course. Yeah.
Well, from ZRG Medical.
Yep.
I mean, those guys, same thing. I mean, they, the fruit doesn't fall very far from the tree. And
no.
So Ken does Amy every year, and does parts, and you want parts, you want good quality parts. We can all say we do them, but when it comes to beds, that's such a specialized market that there's not a lot of people. But you know what? I would do like you would do. If you didn't have it and you couldn't sell it, you'd send them to wherever they needed to go. And I respect you would do that, Sean. It doesn't matter what the vendor is, and I would do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure the customer got what they needed to get or where they needed to go. And I think that helps. But
yeah. So Tony, we've done a lot of shameless plugs, but one we have not done yet is ZRG. So we got to do some shameless plugs for your company, man, because you guys are doing great things. Now, first off, nobody travels and does more shows and events than ZRG and you. There's just no way. Like every single time I'm on LinkedIn, you've got another thing. Actually, I talked to you yesterday. You were coming back from California Ambulatory Surgery Center event that was over in Palm Springs.
Correct. Yeah, that's a big show for us.
Yeah, and you've got Tony and you've got Sydney with you, right? I mean, they were both there.
And we have Randy.
Randy. I'm sorry, Randy. And you guys are really out there. You have your presence known, and being active within the biomed community. You're always promoting the biomed events. You're at every single one of those, and but also too, your company's growing and you're expanding the list of services. And then, you recently opened up another location out in, is it Oklahoma City?
It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah. So we split our time now. I'm born and raised California, San Diego, but I have some grandkids there. So it's kind of like, that's where the spot ended up. They said, why are you in Tulsa? But it does work out because, we do it based on the weather. I hate to say it, but when it's really hot back there, I'm here in San Diego. Yeah. When it cools down, I'm back there and working it from there. And we're remote, so it doesn't really matter where we're at. I don't have to go in the office every day. So I've got, the nice thing is we got people that can manage it. Now we just kind of oversee the whole, me do the whole operation. So that's good.
Which is awesome.
We're very, Sean, I will say, we're very active in the biomed associations. We're very active in the materials managers associations. We're in the surgery. There's a lot of different places that we focus our attention, right? But we're not just, I can't say in good faith that we're just not a pay your dues and go buy your booth and call it a day. I mean, we're in there helping those organizations.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Tony, back in the day, you kept telling me, you got to get to this show. You got to go to this meeting. We got to do that. And we went and did a few shows together up in LA, and we did a lot of those, but,
oh yeah, I'm way past the, and what's a neat thing for myself is as you're passionate about your social media, you know, I'm very passionate about kind of passing the torch or getting these young folks and getting these organizations to do the networking and whatnot. And this is my thing. It's my thing. And I'm really blessed that Mimi allows me to really put the time and, you know, give those hours to those organizations. Because we don't, when you're involved in those organizations, you're not getting paid.
No,
Do that. It's all volunteer, 100% volunteer.
Yeah. And Mimi actually also, Tony, she did an interview with Phil over at .med, Phil Jacobus. Right. Yeah. And she really has a big background, and she, like you guys are both like interconnected when it comes to that, like that mindset and that goal. You've got Mimi as a business partner and obviously as your wife, but she has those same goals and those same commitments to trying to, you know, bring people into the industry that are going to basically be the people that, you know, you'll hand the torches off to as, you know, as we bring in another generation of people.
Well, you know, what's a really neat little story was that we have a local college. There was a college she worked at. She worked 2 full-time jobs. She worked at the college full-time, and she ran the back end of ZRG for many years, right? But when she retired, we both had a goal, like a vision, and it was to create a biomed program similar to Monty and Bill's program down there in Texas.
Tony, I'm sorry. I remember like being up in Carlsbad, and I wasn't getting yelled at, but you were, because
I'm sure I was.
Stuff needed to get done for like that R2 certification is no joke. Like those certifications you get. And I remember
it's very similar to the ISO 13485. It's a little different, but very similar. So we could not, there was, you know, it has to go by the book.
Yeah. But and I remember we're there, and it's like, Sean, I'd really like to talk to you, but right now I've got to get this done. And I didn't, we
probably had an audit coming up. And so
that's exactly what it was.
You and I would have went down to the beach, had coffee, you know,
and you're basically facing the wrath of this needs to get done, and you need to do it, and you need to do it now, Tony.
Yeah, I was our administrator at the time. I mean, thank God.
And she did a great job, by the way. She kept everything organized.
Yeah, but I was lucky enough that I was able to pass it along to folks in the company and took it as serious as I took it. And you know what? We came out all the stronger for it. But what I wanted to say was that it was a really neat synergy between me and my wife. She worked at the college. She, like I said, she would go into the high schools and she put together programs. So her and I just sat one day and I said, wouldn't it be neat if we could get a biomed program together at Miracosta? So she went, got the upper management, she went and had a grant written, I think was for like $5 million. But with that, you have to create an advisory committee of what are you going to teach these students? Well, pretty simple. I literally, I've got so many great biomed leaders on my speed dial, right? Yeah. That when we put the word out, and you can admit, Sean, Mimi and I in the West Coast, we are very well respected.
Very well.
Do what we do what we say, and whatnot. So when we said we're going to do this school, we had such great buy-in from the local leadership. I mean, we would do these advisory council meetings, and literally that was standing room only, right? I mean, so we were able to really get like what they really needed to do. And we're in our 4th year now. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Jeff Smoot runs that program, and Carissa Chavez is the administrator now. But that class, they do two or three classes a year, and they're averaging between 16 and 20 students. Every one of those students, when they graduate that school, that program has become, it's not as intensive as Monty's program. Theirs is a lot more intensive because you can get this is more of a certification program.
Right.
But it's not only about the certificate, learning the medical equipment. It's how do you interact when things don't go right, right?
Yeah.
When the nurse is screaming at you and this doesn't work and I've got a case coming up and you need to fix this right now. And all it was that they didn't plug it in, or you know what I mean?
That's
something
right.
simple.
Yeah.
You got to keep your cool. So
Yeah.
The moral is the story here is that program has become a very well-renowned program. People know if you want a good biomed, you can start there. And there's a lot of them around the US. I mean, there's some really good ones out there, but that's something that Mimi and I are very proud of, that, you know, it was something that we just thought we needed more in the industry.
Yeah.
And it's done well. And now, even in California now, I'm part of the, like you're talking about, am I involved with the associations? We have our CMI Connect in the end of the month. And I'm on that planning team. So when that conference happens, it's not like we hire a company to come in and make the conference happen. There's like 4 or 5 of us that we're setting up the classrooms. we're setting it all up. But we do an awards every year, and we have it's called the Frank. There's a gentleman in California by the name of Frank Yip. When he passed away, he did a gift to the organization, and we now have a scholarship called the Frank Yip Scholarship, and it goes to these students. And this year we had 2 from Maricosta and we had 2 from American River College.
Wow.
And they get it's a $500 scholarship. But I tell them, I said, you know what? It's not even about the money. When you win the Frank Yip Scholarship, that's similar to in, you know, football or college, you got the Heisman Trophy.
Right.
That's like getting, you know, a version of the Heisman Trophy. You know,
that's right.
I said the prestige that comes with that is it's you know, I said it's people take notice of that. And a quick story about the Frank Yip. This past year, we go out to like I said, the local colleges that have a biomed program. So I'm talking with the administrators up at American River, which is the school up in the Sacramento area. I said, yeah, we're doing the Frank Yip and I need to get this going and whatnot. And it turned out that the new instructor that they have up at American River was a gentleman by the name of Mike Earls. And Mike Earls, I had recruited him maybe 7-8 years ago and said, Mike, you know, you need to apply for this. You're a quality candidate to win this. And so he ended up winning it 7-8 years ago. Now he's the teacher, and I'm going to him to say, hey, can you put me 2 candidates forward? You know the importance of this award. So it's kind of neat how everything comes full circle. That a previous Frank Yip Scholarship winner now is an administrator instructor is now pushing forward his favorite his best candidates in that class to win the award. So it'll be neat this year that a past one, when we do the awards, he's going to be giving the award away to the Frank Yip winners at American River, and Dr. Smoot and Carissa will give it away for the Maricosta students.
That's
so
exciting.
We're trying in our own little way.
Dude, you never stop. You're always moving and you're always pushing it forward. And I mean, I thank you. The industry thanks you. And that's why I love these calls, you know, because, you know, honestly, Tony, you put in so much time. And the one thing that, you know, we gotta get back to is that it's relationship building. You know, like you've built so many relationships within the industry that there's not a show you're not going to go to that you're not going to know a lot, if not more than half the people there, because of the time that you've spent developing these relationships, meeting these people. And that's not just California, that's all over the country. Because I know you do way more than just Southern California.
We're there. And, you know, I will say this year it was pretty neat. We have not had in-person conferences for AMI, ARM, any of the big major ones. And this year at AMI, we did it in San Antonio, and it went off. Everyone started coming back, you know, because those are shows it's like you said, it's about the personal relationships.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was that, you know, myself and not only me, but there's a lot of, it took us an hour to go 4 rows because so many people that we haven't seen them, you know, and it's like, you're like, you know what, you could really breeze through a show and, you know, see pretty much everyone, you know, up and down the 50 rows or whatever they have. This year was not like that. It was it just took me, people were like, come by, make sure you stop by my booth. They'd be, you know, for the back. And I'm like, that was like 4. I'm like, listen, I can't even make it to, you know, I'm barely getting out of the second row now.
Yeah.
It's good.
So Tony, we got to talk a little bit more about ZRG, and then we'll
Sure.
wrap it up. And
Yeah.
so if I didn't know much about ZRG and I'm sitting at a 10,000 foot view looking down, tell me about ZRG, the company. Give me a short synopsis of ZRG.
The company we started as an asset disposition company, right? And we early on, you know, going into hospitals and removing their surplus equipment. That's our main business. But since that time, you know, with my relationship with the biomeds, we're doing more service. So we're going out in the field, we can do service. We can do refurbished equipment. We can do we do have a huge dealer market that we cater to. As you can, Sean, we've done a lot of deals. And we're gonna keep doing them.
Right.
We have an auction division, right, where we just do the auction. We do parts is another one that we do. So parts is becoming our new kind of specialized area. So because of the amount of equipment we get in, we're dealing with the newer used stuff, and we're doing, you know, something like what Traco does. Traco now, which is the bed company, Clifton Trista's dad, where we're now taking those whole units and turning them into parts for that. So
that's awesome. Tony, give me just a sec. I'm going to adjust my video, but go ahead and keep going there for just a second.
No, that's fine. So those are and we do rent. Sorry, and our last division that we do really well on is our rentals. So that's another big area that we do a lot of imaging rentals, a lot of ultrasound rentals, you know, just in time rentals, anesthesia. Where you're more beds, we're everything but beds. So anything in the OR, surgery tables, surgery lights, anesthesia machines, ESUs, endoscopy towers, patient monitors. We do a lot of ophthalmology equipment, and we do chairs, but we're not doing, you know, we'll just do the exam tables and whatnot. But that's pretty much what we do. And we're here, and we're also based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So that's where our kind of areas that we geographically cater to. So that's pretty much ZRG. Okay. So there's, like I said, there's if anyone's interested in any of those, okay, good. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do, Sean. I mean, we're capital equipment, and then we do the rentals and the parts. So that's really where I'd say we're really strong at.
So you opened up in Oklahoma, in Tulsa. Where do you see ZRG going in the next year to 18 months? Any goals specifically, or?
You know, that's a good question. I think we should save that for another. Not that I'm not trying to evade the question. I'm just saying that, you know, with the way companies are merging and how they are conglomerating, you know, I think that would be a great topic for another day.
I think you're right.
No, just based on like some of these Cavante acquisitions, and how some of these companies, how you guys put Green River and your company and John's company together. You know, I think that'd be a great topic to go over, because I mean, you know, you talked earlier, I think you kind of nailed where ZRG should be going. But at the same time, to me, I'm so interested in where it's going to go, that, you know, that's what I like.
I do too.
There's
a lot going on in our industry right now. So you've got some big players out there. Obviously, Avante probably led the charge, because they came in and just gobbled up a lot of big companies, a lot of really good companies. And then Centurion obviously has been a player, because they've, you know, come in and taken out or purchased Monet and Ganem, and they just got Dia Medical, I believe, correct?
Oh, really? I didn't know that. It's interesting.
And so there is some sort of consolidation going on, and I know there's some other players that are out there kind of on the fringes that are companies like US MedEquip, and certainly Agility buying Sizewise, which was the bed manufacturer, and sort of solidifying having, you know, high-low products and specialty made products for their rental fleets. And then, you know, size-wise, being a company that made a lot of specialty beds, had a lot of rental contracts. And, you know, I know for us, we just did our 3-year review and what we're going to be doing for our 4th year. And like you said, the market changes, the industry has changed. And so companies have to look at that, and they need to make those types of changes to kind of stay with where everything's moving. And
well, I think, Sean, I will say, I'm not saying it's the right way, but I'm saying with these companies, no, what it's going to, I'm going to be talking smack about you and your partners. But, you know, what I will say is that when you get these larger venture capital companies coming in, they really don't understand our business, nor do they have a personal relationship with you. They have the money.
Yep.
And they want to do it. Where what you did is that you and Gus and John, you're basically 3 buddies. You know what I mean? And you're like, hey, I think it's better for us to work together than it is to work in whatever. And I, if you want my honest opinion, I kind of favor that model. You know, I don't mind some acquisition of your company, but you know, I think I personally think it will change, where it'll be more strategic partnerships of companies that like each other, can trust each other. And we all know, you know, enough people that are good people in this industry that you could work with, you know, where they can continue to do what they're doing. But it's like now, instead of you trying to do it okay or pretty good, they do it really good, right? So let them, you know, let them do that part of it and whatnot.
That's right. Well,
that's where like I said, I think that you know, that's something that from a standpoint of us, I think that's something that there's a lot of different ways you can cut it. And you know, VC money is good, but you know, when you sell, you're basically selling your soul to the devil, and you know, maybe that vision you had, you know, is going to be now becomes their vision, not yours.
Yeah. I mean, there is that emotional part of it, because obviously these businesses are like our kids. We've raised them since they were, you know, since they started, and we've got a lot invested in them. But I think, you know, Tony, I think the key word that I think about when I'm thinking about anything related to business stuff in the medical industry is it's all about leveraging the assets and the skill sets that you've got with other companies that either have them and need to expand them, or just straight up don't even have them, and they need to get them into their repertoire. And, you know, you guys, I'm sure, are going to be a company that's going to be looked at in the future, because, and I've talked about this with our business partners and other people, but if you're going to be in this industry, you really have to have good sources of getting equipment.
Oh, that's number one, Sean.
I mean,
so let's just call it as it is. That it's you either do or you don't.
That's exactly right. And for those companies that are out there that are in the recertification market, and I've been that person. Now, for me, obviously, like we were talking about, I'm driving up to your warehouse, see what you just brought in, and I'm picking stuff up. In this day and age, obviously, it's gotten more complex and much larger.
Sean, you wouldn't even, Sean, if this would have been 10 years ago, you would have probably fainted. You'll faint on sight.
I would have retired by now, because you'd had so much stuff. I'd have been down. But you know, there's certainly assets, Tony, that ZRG has that a larger company would love to get, and those relationships, those contacts, not taking those, but leveraging the contacts that you have to get that inventory on a regular basis, because there is nothing worse. And you know, and I know, you probably don't know it as much as I do, but when you get orders in and you need a 3085 table, and you're starting to go, okay, who am I going to call to get a 3085 from? It's much easier if you have that inventory coming in that you can source from your own hospitals and that. And if you're constantly that person that's out there trying to deal with companies like iMedical or ZRG or any of these companies that have hospital contracts that bring in a regular amount of an inventory, and even though we've got them, we still run out of stuff. It's not like, oh, I've got that doesn't mean anything.
You're always buying. Cleveland just used to always buy forward, you know, even if they didn't need it, they'd always buy forward.
That's right. And now the logistics and the shipping costs, it's like you're buying the stuff and everybody wants top dollar, because there is sort of a shortage on, let's say, surgical equipment right now. So the costs are getting higher, and now you've got to move it from here to there, and that got higher, and there's a lot of stuff.
Sean, yeah, I know we were going to keep this down, but one of the advantages, and again, I'm not going to knock the Centurion model, but one of the kind of value adds that we used to have against Centurion was that, Centurion's model, they get it from the hospital, and they may turn it on, and, but it goes right to auction. There's very minimal working on it. Well, with that certification, the R2 certification that we discussed earlier, one of the advantages we had for dealers like yourself was that everything that we brought in, and we weren't really doing auction back in the day, but it had to have a documented test result go along with it. So if you're a dealer, right, are you going to buy a piece of equipment from Centurion for $1,000 for any issue? Just around a number with no test records, nothing. Or are you going to spend $1,000 for any issue from ZRG with the documented test result that has been not sort of, I don't necessarily going to warranty it, but you're going to know what you're buying.
That's right.
That really was one of the areas where we were able to really kind of like, I guess, give it our value add in that auction.
Honestly, Tony, that was one of the smartest moves you made, because I remember when you got that new location in Oceanside, one of the first thing you did was you got biomeds in there.
Yeah, well, Sean, I always had biomeds. Full-time, yes. But I have so many biomeds that, in the early days, I didn't need to have full-time, because I could pick up the phone. If I got a C-arm, I'd call somebody from my local hospital. Can you come in? I knew so many Navy people. I had no, I could get anything fixed at any given time I wanted. Probably I had as much access as I had to the equipment. I had just as much access to biomeds. But yeah, I need to have more in-house. And so that really has helped out a lot.
And that was always a great move. That helps companies like us out, because now we can do, you always give us a great assessment of what the condition is.
Always.
I mean, you've always done that, but now it's at a larger scale, obviously, because the company's grown so much.
More of a process. And I will plug our parts again. I'm going to warn you, I've got KJ. KJ's heading up the parts, and KJ is not going to let anything go out the door that has not been tested before it goes into parts inventory. And I guarantee you, he'll test it before it'll go out. So those parts will all be validated. And it's like when you put that device on your mother or brother or sister, I'd sell a part. That's how our parts would go out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think, Tony, anybody that's watched this video at this point of the podcast knows that me and you can definitely talk all day together. That's why I love you so much. It's like we could sit and go back and forth and talk about stuff all day long. So as much as I love hanging out and talk with you, I'm trying to throw questions in that are like bringing it to the relative stuff within the industry. But there's a lot of exciting things going on, and I love you, man. I wish you nothing but the best for your company, your business, your employees. Like with all of us, technically there's company there, but we're ultimately there to take care of people. Your employees become your family. They've all got kids and bills and rents, and we're all working hard to build these businesses so that we can give people a really good career choice within the industry, whether or not they're going to be in sales or they're going to be doing biomedical stuff, whatever it is. And you've always had great relationships with not just people in the industry. You've always had good people. I know you take really good care of the employees. People like working with you. Obviously, everybody loves you, man. You've got such a great personality, and you've really honestly become a very visible person within the medical community. So for everything that you do, setting that standard, being a guy that's easy to work with, providing good equipment, helping get biomedicals in there, being a face that's in all these shows and conferences, man, I thank you for that. And I will say that I am very blessed and very lucky to have met you and to basically be able to call you a friend. So
yeah, Shawnee, feeling is mutual, my friend. But we'll stay. We're always in touch, so it's no.
Yeah. But I know you were super busy. I know you've got a lot going on. A lot of people do right now, but I appreciate you taking the time to let me get this interview out there, because like I said, I mean, there's a lot of people that that will jump on and we will do calls with, but the more calls that I get out there, the more people I talk to, the more framework it kind of gives them for kind of what it is that we're doing and where I'm going with this channel. But these are the types of conversations that I love to have. It's basically, sitting at a coffee shop and having a couple of coffees and just, what they would say in the old days, chewing the fat, so to speak. But
hey,
but
Clyde would be proud of you.
Clyde would be proud of me.
He
Clyde
would be proud of you.
me.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Sean. Well, appreciate the time today. Have a wonderful day. All right.
Tony, great to see you. Thanks again. We'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.